Okay, so now I'm going to show you some more basic trig equations, but these you solve in the calculator. All right, so I'm just going to work a couple of them off of your assignment. And remember to follow the steps. Make sure you look in your notes. The first step would be to make sure that your calculator is in the right mode, which in this problem we would want it to be in degree mode. So just a reminder to check the mode on your calculator. You go to Settings, Settings in General. Make sure that where it says angle, it says degree, and make sure you choose Make Default. All right, so you want to make sure you do that. And then you're ready to isolate the trig function. So like I'm going to work number 14 here. The trig function is cosecant. So you want to get that by itself. So you're going to add 9 to both sides. And then divide both sides by 6. All right. If you're working this at home, at this point you would not be able to continue with the problem because you don't have an inverse cosecant button on your calculator. So what you could do if you're working this at home, instead of cosecant being 9 over 6, you could work the problem as if it said sine is 6 over 9. Right, so you could work it like a sine problem because you do have a sine button on your calculator, and above it you do have an inverse sine function. So I'll show you both ways in case you want to work on this at home or if you don't have access to an Inspire. So once you get the trig ratio by itself, then you use the inverse function. So we're going to do the inverse of cosecant to get the reference angle. All right, so the inverse of cosecant. All right, so you press the trig button, inverse of cosecant, 9 over 6. Right, so 41 or 42. Right, if we're rounding to the nearest decimal. Right, so 42, I think is what I said. Hopefully, I've already forgotten. All right, so that's the reference angle. And then cosecant is positive, because it's positive 9 over 6. Cosecant is positive in the first and second quadrants. Remember, sine and cosecant are going to have the same signs. So first and second quadrants. So the 42 degree angles in the first and second quadrants are 42. And then if you do 180 minus 42, because you're 42 degrees away from 180, you'd get 138. So 42 and 138. Now, if you work this out on your 84 calculator, right? So, excuse me, you're going to work it using the sine as 6 over 9 instead of the cosecant as 9 over 6. Then you, to find your reference angle, would do the inverse sine of 6 over 9. So on the 83 or 84, I think you have to press second sine to get inverse sine. Just look for it. It should be there. But notice what happens if you type in inverse sine of 6 over 9 on your calculator. So however you get to inverse sine on the old calculators, notice we get the same answer either way because cosecant and sine are reciprocals. So if the cosecant of an angle is 9 over 6, then the sine of the angle is 6 over 9. We're talking about the same angle. So they're both going to be 42 degrees. So you'd still work the problem the same way. All right, so here your answers would be 42 and 38. All right, so I'm going to work one more of these just to kind of make sure that you kind of get it. And then if you have any other questions, you can, of course, ask me in class. So let's look at, let's see, which one do we want to do? I'll just do this number 15 here. Keep it simple. So number 15, we already checked to make sure our calculator was in degree mode. We need to isolate the trig function, so divide both sides by 4. Then use the inverse function to find the reference angle. So if I do the inverse function here, inverse sine of 3/4, I get 49 degrees. Right, so I get 49 degrees. That's the reference angle. And then I know that sine would be positive in the first and second quadrants. So I'm looking for the angles in the first and second quadrants that would have 49 degrees as the reference angle. So that would be 49 degrees away from the x-axis. So in the first quadrant, that's just 49. And in the second quadrant, I'm 49 degrees away from 180. So 180 minus 49, so 131, right?